I found my neighbor's hidden basement, and the tapes inside revealed a horrifying secret no one believed. A year later, she came back begging me to help, but it was already too late. I should have trusted my gut the first time the smell hit me. Rancid and sour, like rotting meat mixed with bleach. I thought maybe a raccoon had died under my porch. But it wasn't under mine. It was coming from next door. Miss Teresa's house always looked off. Perfectly maintained but off. Too clean. Like someone was trying too hard to make you forget something ugly. Fresh mulch every week. Wind chimes that played the same 3 notes in the wind. A white Chrysler Pacifica always parked at the exact same angle. Spotless even in the muddiest spring. Everyone on the block thought she was sweet. She used to be a nurse, retired now. Always handed out full-size candy bars at Halloween and smiled with those tight lips that never actually reached her eyes. My wife used to say, "Teresa's just lonely. But I work from home, I see things." And loneliness doesn't explain the 3 a.m. dragging sounds or why the backyard floodlight clicked on randomly like it was motion-activated. But no one was there. It started with a missing cat. A kid named Jonah put up posters. Then 2 more cats. Then a dog. All in a 2-block radius. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. Something was wrong on our street. I didn't plan to get involved. I work remote IT for a fintech startup, low stress, high caffeine, 0 drama. But when my wife, Mallory, left to visit her sister for 2 weeks, I suddenly had too much quiet and too many questions. And a sick smell that wouldn't quit. Then came the tipping point. I saw her dragging a black garbage bag down the driveway one night. It was oddly shaped, bulky and stiff. She was hunched, struggling, even though she's built like a stick of celery. But when she saw me looking, she straightened right up, smiled like we were best friends and said, "Just pruning some dead plants." It wasn't dead plants. The next morning, I did what I'd never dared before. I crossed over to her yard. That's when I found it. Or them. Behind her garage, where the fence sags, there's a patch of dirt that always looked oddly fresh. Not like a garden, like something had been dug up and poorly covered. I stepped over, bent down, and poked at the dirt with the toe of my boot. It gave too easily. Curiosity morphed into dread as I dropped to my knees and dug with my hands. Only a few inches down, I hit plastic. Not a garbage bag. A thick zippered vinyl pouch. The kind hospitals use to move biohazard waste. I tugged it open halfway. Inside were bones. Not animal bones. Not pet-sized. This was something else. Something human. Partial jaw with teeth. Vertebrae. A small, delicate hand. I stumbled backward and threw up in her petunias. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely stand. My hands were covered in dirt and something sticky that wasn't mud. I knew instantly this wasn't some decades-old mystery. This was fresh. And just then, as if summoned, Teresa stepped out her back door. She locked eyes with me and smiled, like she knew. That was the moment I had to decide. Do I call the police and get dragged into whatever hell she's buried behind her garage? Or do I pretend I didn't see a thing? I chose the first option. I made the call. And that's when everything started unraveling. Fast. The cops showed up in 15 minutes. I'd barely washed the dirt from my hands. I didn't even get to change out of the flannel pajama pants I was still wearing when I found the bones. 2 cruisers, 1 unmarked SUV, and an officer who kept glancing at my shaking hands like I might crack before he even asked a question. I walked them straight to the back, explaining in this weird, robotic tone like I was trying to convince myself it had really happened. The dirt, the bag, the bones. I didn't tell them about the dragging noises at night or the missing animals. Yet, I just kept pointing and saying, "It's there." I didn't touch anything else. And Teresa, she just stood on her porch, watching, not panicking, not crying, just sipping tea like it was a Sunday brunch and I was the entertainment. When they handcuffed her, she didn't flinch. She didn't ask why or who called or even try to argue. She just looked at me, dead in the eye, and said, "Some truth should stay buried, Adam." It was the first time she'd ever used my name. That sentence haunts me. It didn't feel like a threat. Felt like a warning. They brought in cadaver dogs. Crime scene tape went up. News vans showed up by dinner time. I remember standing by the window, Mallory's favorite mug shaking in my hand, watching our little suburban street become the center of a horror documentary. The next day, they uncovered 5 more bags. Each one held bones, partial remains. They didn't say much to the press, but I heard an officer whisper to another that some were small, too small. Children. That's what he meant. The whole neighborhood imploded. The HOA president passed out. Mrs. Levine down the block packed her house and moved in 48 hours. Parents kept their kids inside. Mail stopped for a few days because even the USPS driver couldn't stomach driving by. Teresa was arraigned, denied bail, and locked up pending trial. She didn't talk. No confession. No denial. Just silence. And me? I couldn't sleep. For weeks. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that little hand. I thought I heard her whispering through the walls. Mallory came home to a husband who was constantly checking locks, jumping at shadows, and refusing to go into the backyard. She told me I did the right thing, but sometimes at night I'd catch her staring at me like she was afraid I'd found something that followed me back. And maybe I had. Because even with Teresa gone, something didn't feel finished. Then, a month later, the biggest bombshell dropped. The bones didn't match any local missing persons reports. Forensics estimated most of them were decades old. A couple were even older than that, possibly from the 1970s. But here's the twist that kept me up even longer. None of the DNA matched Teresa. They weren't her kids. Or anyone related to her. So, who were they? And why the hell were they buried on her property? I had too many questions. And no one, especially Teresa, was giving answers. About 2 weeks after her arrest, the headlines cooled off. The media moved on. New scandal. New tragedy. But our street was still cracked down the middle. Half the neighbors wanted to burn Teresa's house to the ground. The other half whispered things like maybe she was framed. I didn't know where I stood. But every day I had to look at that house. Still as a mausoleum. Curtains drawn. Lights off. Mail piling up. Like the house itself was holding its breath. Then came the police knock. Detective Arguello, stocky, mid-50s, voice like gravel and breath that hinted at too much gas station coffee. He'd been at the scene that first day. Now he was back with a folder and a tight jaw. "We've got a situation," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. They couldn't pin anything solid on her. The remains were decades old and there was no direct evidence linking Teresa to the deaths. No witness, no confession, no paper trail. They couldn't even determine the cause of death for most of the remains. Some had been burned. Others showed signs of weather exposure. And without knowing who the victims were, it was like prosecuting a ghost story. "But you saw the bag," I said, heat rising in my voice. "She was burying it." "I saw her." Arguello nodded, slow and grim. "We believe you. But proving it in court? That's different. That's complicated." Then he said something that stuck in my head like a tick. "Is it possible, Adam, that she wasn't the one who buried them?" I blinked. "What?" "She moved in 10 years ago. Previous owner died. No family. No records before that are clear. House sat vacant for months. Nobody did a proper inspection." "You're saying they were already there?" I whispered. He shrugged. "I'm saying the timeline's loose. Too loose. And if this goes to trial, her lawyer's gonna argue the same thing." That night, I sat alone in my office and went down a rabbit hole. Pulled up property records. Dug through archive forums. Even paid for a background search on the previous homeowner, some guy named Marvin Croft. Vietnam vet. Died of a heart attack in 2009. No family, no obituary, just a short blurb in a local paper. But one weird detail stood out. He was a mortuary assistant. Retired early. Lived reclusive. Neighbors said he kept odd hours. That's when the first true question sank into my bones. Had I exposed the wrong person? Was Teresa hiding something she didn't do? And if so, what else was she hiding? Because whatever the truth was, she had looked me in the eye and said some truths should stay buried. And now I couldn't stop wondering if digging them up had unleashed something worse. That's when the nightmares started. The jawbone. The hand. A shadow in my hallway at 3:17 a.m. every night, always just disappearing around the corner. I told myself it was stress. I told myself it was guilt. But in the silence, when the wind didn't blow and the house didn't creak, I swore I heard breathing that wasn't mine. I had a choice now. Keep pushing for the truth. Or stop asking questions and hope the darkness didn't look back. The letter arrived exactly 1 year to the day after Teresa's arrest. No envelope. Just folded neatly and shoved through my mail slot like someone didn't want it seen. Mallory was the one who found it on the floor right after her morning run. I was sipping burnt coffee and skimming the news on my phone when she handed it to me, her expression tight. "You're not going to like this," she said. I unfolded it. No return address. No signature. Just 5 shaky words written in block letters. "You owe her the truth." That was it. No explanation. No threat. No clue who sent it. But something about the handwriting looked familiar. And the way it was worded, "owe her," nodded something primal inside me. I called Arguello. He said it was probably just some neighbor trying to stir the pot. Said not to let it get in my head. But the way he said it, like he didn't believe it himself, told me all I needed to know. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I kept replaying Teresa's words, some truths should stay buried. Was this what she meant? That someone else knew about the bones? That maybe she wasn't the one who buried them? I started thinking about Marvin Croft again. His reclusive habits. His job with the dead. How his backyard had conveniently never been properly surveyed. The house had changed owners 3 times before Teresa. But only Teresa had been there when the smell started. Was it a coincidence, or was something still in that house? I needed more information. So I did what I probably shouldn't have. I called in a favor. An old college buddy of mine, Jake, now a county code enforcer. He had access to inspection records, permits, all that bureaucratic stuff most people ignore. He owed me from back when I helped him recover his hacked email account and his awkward subscription history. I gave him the address and told him to check for anything unusual tied to that property. He called back 2 hours later. His voice was lower than usual. Hesitant. "Adam, you sure you want to go down this road? That's never a good sign." "There's a permit on file from '87, he said. "Partial basement remodel. Nothing odd about that. But get this, the contractor that filed it disappeared 6 months later. Wife filed a missing person report. Case went cold." I swallowed. "And you think?" "I don't know what I think. But if someone was hiding bodies, a half-finished basement would be a damn good place to start." And just like that, I knew. I couldn't leave it alone. I had to go back into that house. The police had long cleared it, deemed it safe, and listed it for sale. No buyers. No surprise there. But I knew how to get in. Teresa had given me a spare key a year ago, back when she still pretended to trust me. She'd asked me to water her plants when she went on a church trip. I tossed it in a junk drawer. I found it. Held it in my hand for a long time. Mallory begged me not to go. Said the nightmares were already ruining us. Said I wasn't the same anymore. She wasn't wrong. But I had to know. That night, I went alone. I told myself I'd just take a quick look. In and out. 1 hour tops. That was the plan. But nothing ever goes according to plan. It was colder than it should have been. The thermostat was off, I checked. But the second I stepped into Teresa's house, the air felt heavy. Like walking into a vacuum. No creaks, no hum of appliances. Just that same weird sterile silence, like the whole place was holding its breath. The furniture was still there, dusty under plastic covers. A bowl of fake fruit on the table. A photo of a younger Teresa on the mantel, standing stiff beside a man I'd never seen before, gray suit, smile just a little too wide. Probably Marvin. I moved slow, every step deliberate. The floorboards under the runner creaked once. I paused and listened. Nothing. Then I made my way to the basement door. It groaned open. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness. I clicked on my flashlight and descended, the wooden steps bowing under my weight. The smell hit me halfway down, not rot this time, but mildew and rust. The smell of neglect. The basement was unfinished, exposed beams, cracked concrete, boxes stacked like forgotten tombstones. But in the far left corner, something didn't look right. There was a door. Not like a room door. It was metal. Matte gray. No knob, just a recessed handle and a rusted-out lock barely hanging on. I knew for a fact this door hadn't been here a year ago when the police did their sweep. And definitely not when I watered her plants the summer before. This was new. Well, newly exposed. I don't know what made me pull on it. Maybe it was the adrenaline, maybe the obsession. Maybe the same stupidity that gets people killed in horror movies. Either way, I gripped the handle and yanked. It screeched open, metal grinding against concrete. My flashlight flickered. Inside was a room. Bare. Cement walls. No furniture. No light fixture. But right in the center, like someone had placed it there on purpose, was a wooden box. Not large. About the size of a footlocker. Old. Stained. My heart was a sledgehammer. Every part of me screamed to turn around and leave. But I couldn't. I crouched, flipped the latch, and opened it. Inside were tapes. Dozens of them. Old hi-8 camcorder tapes, each labeled with a date and a single word, session. I stared at them, pulse roaring in my ears. The first date? April 17, 1989. The last? February 3, 2015. My hands shook as I pulled one out. There was a camcorder next to the box. Covered in dust, but intact. I should have left. I should have called Arguello. But instead, I popped in the first tape and hit play. Static. Then, a flickering image. A dimly lit room. A table. 2 chairs. A young girl, maybe 10, sitting across from an older man. Not Marvin. Not Teresa. Someone else. The girl was crying. The man was speaking, but I couldn't hear the words, just this low, rhythmic tone like chanting or whispering layered under the audio. Then the screen cut to black. I popped the tape out while rising in my throat. This wasn't just a hoarder's box. This was evidence. Years' worth. Not just bones in the dirt, rituals. I stumbled backward, knocking over a shelf, and something sharp sliced across my forearm. I didn't care. I scrambled up the stairs, slammed the basement door shut, and ran out the front like the house itself was alive and chasing me. I sat in my car with my hands on the wheel for almost 30 minutes before I could breathe properly. Teresa didn't bury those bodies. She documented them. Or worse, someone else did. And she kept it. But why? Why stay in that house? Why bury the remains instead of destroying them? Why hold on to the tapes? Unless she wasn't just hiding them. She was protecting them. Or someone else. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't even sit still. I just kept playing that tape in my head, the girl's face, the man's shadow, that strange whisper beneath the footage. Every time I blinked, I saw that basement room. That box. I called Arguello first thing the next morning. Told him everything. The door. The tapes. The names. The smell. My voice cracked halfway through, and I think part of me hoped he'd laugh it off. Tell me I was imagining things. He didn't. Instead, he said, stay put. We'll send someone. But they never showed. Not that day. Not the next. And when I called back, his line was disconnected. Office said he was on extended leave. Wouldn't say why. So I did what I hadn't done in a year. I drove to the jail. Teresa had been moved to a psychiatric facility months ago after a court-appointed evaluation declared her unfit to stand trial. That too had barely made the news. The receptionist looked at me like I was out of my mind. Family only, she said, without even checking the register. I lied. Said I was her nephew. That her sister had sent me. That she'd recognize me. That it was urgent. Eventually, they let me in. A room with plexiglass and a metal phone. I sat there, heart in my throat, until they brought her in. She was thinner. Hair grayer. But those eyes? Same as before. Sharp. Calculated. She sat down. Picked up the phone. Didn't say a word. I leaned in. They found the door, I whispered. She blinked slowly. And did you open it? My blood ran cold. You knew I would. She smiled, soft and sad, like I was a child who'd finally put the pieces together too late. They always open it, she said. What does that mean? Who's they? What were the tapes? Why keep them? Because forgetting is dangerous, she said quietly. You burn evil, it finds new kindling. You bury it deep enough, at least it stops spreading. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You protected it, I said. You knew what was down there, and you stayed. To keep it still, she said, calm as ever. Until someone got curious. That night, I went back to the house. I had to. It felt like a fever. Like something unfinished had infected my bloodstream. The box was gone. The door, too. Just solid concrete wall. Like it had never existed. I stood there, flashlight shaking in my hand, breathing in that strange cold again. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. My name. From behind the wall. I didn't run. I backed out slowly, climbed the stairs, and locked the door behind me. But even in the safety of my car, I could still feel it. Like something had followed me out. And the next morning, I found another letter on my porch. Same handwriting. One sentence. You opened the door. Now you keep it shut. It happened on a Tuesday. Rain had just started, soft and cold, the kind that soaks your clothes before you realize you're wet. I was pacing in the living room, replaying the whisper in my head, the letters, the fact that Arguello had seemingly vanished into thin air when there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Mallory was upstairs on a Zoom call. I peeked through the window, expecting maybe a delivery or some solicitor dumb enough to ignore the no visitors sign. But it wasn't a stranger. It was her. Teresa. Not in a jumpsuit. Not handcuffed. She wore a long brown coat, damp from the rain, and that same pressed smile she always had when she handed out candy to kids. I opened the door halfway. What the hell are you doing here? She looked tired. Older. Like the time since her arrest had drained something vital out of her. They let me go, she said softly. My stomach twisted. Let you go? What does that even mean? No charges. No trial. No case, she said. You saw to that, remember? I felt my jaw clench. She stepped closer, water dripping from her sleeves. I need your help, Adam. You need to tell them what you found. The real story. I laughed bitterly. You mean the door that disappeared? The tapes that nobody saw but me. They won't listen to me. But they might believe you, she said, voice steady. And if they don't, well, at least you'll know you tried. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. You want me to clear your name after everything? No, she said. I want you to protect people from what's coming. And there it was. Not innocence. Not denial. Just that same vague, terrible sense that she knew something I didn't. What's coming? I asked. She looked past me toward the house. Something old. Something that sleeps. Until you woke it. There was no anger in her voice. Just sadness. You took the key, she whispered. And that's when it clicked. The box hadn't been a hiding place. It was a lock. And when I opened it, I hadn't uncovered evidence. I'd unsealed it. I didn't sleep for 3 days after Teresa showed up. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that concrete wall blinking like an eye. I heard that low chant under the static from the tape. I smelled the dry rot scent in my own home, even though Mallory swore she didn't smell anything. I didn't tell her about the second whisper. Or the third. They didn't come from inside my head. They came from inside our walls. By the 4th night, I caved. I called the one person I hadn't spoken to since it all went public, Jake, my buddy from code enforcement. I asked him to meet me, swore I wasn't crazy, begged him to bring the blueprints for Teresa's property and every permit ever filed. We met in his truck in the Walmart parking lot. He looked like hell. You dragged me into something I don't understand, man, he said before handing over a folder. 2 nights ago, I came home and my dog Hank was just gone. No blood. No tracks. Just gone. You think that's coincidence? I opened the folder. And I stopped breathing. There, clear as day, was a sub-basement. Filed under an alias I'd never seen, the Keller Foundation. The permit was dated 1986, signed by someone named Walter C. Rel. No contractor license. No address. No one by that name exists in any system I've checked since. It's under the slab, Jake muttered. Under that door. Whatever it was. My throat was dry. You think it's still open? Jake just looked at me, and for the first time I understood something I'd refused to accept. It was never about bones. It was about the thing under the house. The one Teresa tried to seal. The one I'd let out. And it was hungry. I knew what I had to do. What Teresa had been trying to say, in her weird, cryptic way. You can't kill what doesn't breathe. But maybe, just maybe, you can lock it away. I went back one last time. Midnight. Armed with a gas can, a crowbar, and the most dangerous thing of all. Hope. I broke through the fake wall. The concrete was thin, patchwork. It cracked easier than I expected, as if it wanted to open again. Inside, the door was back. The box was back. But open. Empty. And the cold? It wasn't a chill. It was presence. Something stood in the far corner, just out of my flashlight's reach. A suggestion of form. A distortion in the dark. No eyes. No mouth. Just the feeling of a scream too big for ears. I don't remember lighting the match. I only remember the flames. How they danced across the room without catching on anything. Like the fire itself was afraid. I ran. I didn't look back. The house burned. Fire crews came. They couldn't explain why it wouldn't stay lit. Said it burned cold? Whatever that means. The official report said it was electrical. No one asked questions. No one mentioned the bones. And I never saw Teresa again. It's been a year. The lot where Teresa's house stood is still empty. Nothing grows there, not even weeds. The dirt looks dry, but if you walk too close, you'll swear the air gets colder. No kids ride their bikes past the corner anymore. Mallory doesn't talk about it. We moved, got a new place across town. Different neighbors, no strange smells. I told her I had a breakdown. Stress. Trauma. Therapy helped me come up with words that made sense. But even now, I wake up at 3:17 every night. Every night. The exact time the whisper started. Only now it's silent. That should comfort me, right? But the silence, it's too perfect. Like a note held too long in a song. Like breath held too long in a room. The box is gone. The house is ash. The permits erased themselves from the city database 2 months after the fire. And me? I still have the tapes. I couldn't burn them. I don't know why. They're hidden now. Deep. Buried in concrete I poured myself. Not under my house, no. That would be stupid. But close. Too close. Last night, I got a knock at the door. 3 slow raps. No one was there. But on the mat, soaked from the rain, was another letter. Same handwriting. No return address. Only one sentence. Things that don't dream, never forget. So now I sit here, writing this, wondering if I made the right choice. Wondering if silence means safety, or if it just means it's watching. And all I can do now is wait. Not for the knock. Not for the dream. But for the moment I wake up and realize it was never a dream at all. I haven't slept since.